One of my favorite podcasts out right now is the Pivot Podcast. And the reason for that is because these guys understand how to bring out the best in their interviews with their guests. And they also understand what it's like to be successful. They recently had a special guest that really brought out that entrepreneur side of things. And I think that everybody watching this are going to benefit from this at some point. Now, this guest, obviously, we all know who it is The Rock, Dwayne Johnson. But he brought out several points that I didn't realize how much I can relate to The Rock in general, right, as an entrepreneur. So I'm not going to go through this hour-long podcast, but I am going to show you certain key points in this podcast that I believe is going to bring out the best version of you. It's going to help you bring out the best version of you on your journey to become a successful entrepreneur. So let's get into it.
When they look at us, they see the outside. Looking at you, it just seems like everything is just amazing. You're fine.
You look at guys like Dwayne Johnson, you look at guys like him, and you think that life is perfect, but you really don't understand the struggle of what it took to become the way he is today. So the version that we see of The Rock, the version of Dwayne Johnson we see today was developed over years. I tell people this all the time, even as an entrepreneur myself, right? People look at the end result of what I was able to accomplish as an entrepreneur, but you didn't see the 5 o'clock in the morning yellow letter writing days. You didn't see the 3 o'clock in the morning bandit sign days. You didn't see the struggle of what it took over a period of time to really become the version of me that I am today. And I'm still striving to become a better version of myself at the end of the day. Two things that you can take out of this part of the conversation is, number one, the things you go through in life makes you the person you are, right? Use those things. Don't look at the negative things that happen in your life as a bad thing. Look at them as a positive, because those things help you build character over time. But in addition to that, the people you surround yourself with will literally help you, whether they know it or not, whether you know it or not. They're literally shaping the way you think about life and the things that you experience in life and the things that you can accomplish in life as well.
And again, one of the reasons why I love and respect this show is you guys do go to those places and you are vulnerable and you are open, and it's important to be that way. So the first time depression hit me, I was at the University of Miami.
Me personally, I experienced depression a little over 10 years ago. And let me tell you this. I can't even tell you what caused my depression, because at that time in my life, I was successful. I had a happy family life. I had my spiritual routine intact, and I was happy. But lo and behold, I wasn't happy because something caused that depression.
Down into the ground, my whole shoulder came out and I had to have a complete reconstruction done. But that sent me in a tailspin, and that hit me. And so my first bout of depression was down there in Miami. You didn't want to go to school. I was ready to leave. But the interesting thing at that time is I just didn't know what it was.
Man, such an important point right here, because it really reverts back to exactly what I just said, right? He didn't even know what it was when he was depressed. Same thing with me. I can definitely relate to that, because I personally didn't know that I was going through depression at that point in my life. It was the first time it ever happened. When you have the mindset to achieve greatness, when you have the mindset to achieve big things, there's going to be ups and downs and ebbs and flows of life and business that's going to affect how you feel and affect your balance as a person.
At that time, that was a tough one for me. And again, I didn't know what it was. Years later, I went through it again when I got a divorce. Didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
Years later, around 2017 or so, went through a little bit.
Really?
But knew what it was at that time. And luckily at that time, I had some friends who I could lean on.
This is the importance of having that network, the like-minded people surrounding you as a business owner. I didn't know what it was, but it wasn't until I really had to sit down with my best friend, who's my wife, and really talk about it. And we came to the conclusion that, you know, it was depression. But for him, he was going through some hardships at that point. For me, it was different.
The saving grace for me has really been my daughters, the three of them, and being a girl dad.
Right.
That's been a saving grace, because you look at them and you realize, well, I mean, really, this is what it's all about.
I love this because he made it about somebody else, and that's how he came out of his bout of depression. Make it about somebody else. Make your goals that you set for business or for life in general not about you, but about somebody else. Because number one, if you make the goals about yourself, then you can let yourself down. And when the bar is set so high for yourself, then that's where the depression can set in when you don't hit those goals. But when you make it about somebody else, you constantly have a target. You constantly have something to look forward to. And ultimately, that can help you to stay focused. When I started looking at my goals differently, when I made my goals about my family, my wife and I, we have 5 kids. So my family is everything to me, right? When I made it about them and I started setting goals, not about being successful and having money, but I set the goals wrapped around how can I provide my family with the best life possible? How can I be the best version of myself for my family? Then the depression goes away.
So his capacity for love was what it was, very limited. So my point is that was my dad as I started coming into my own as a teenager, that capacity of love, that limited capacity. And so we were like this for a very long time.
I think also what played a major role in his life, just listening to him, was his father. For me, my father was there. Now, granted, my father, he tried his best to help my mother. But at the end of the day, even if your father can't provide for you, from a financial aspect, just having that presence of a father figure in your life can definitely set the tone on how you think about things and keep you on a straight and narrow as well. So I can definitely relate to that.
Do it. I said, I'm not going to do it. He goes, well, what are you going to do? By this time, my mom's walking in. She starts to feel the tension, right? She walks in, and I was an only child, so it's just the 3 of us in this house, in this little apartment in Tampa. She walks in. My dad said, what are you going to do? I said, this is it. I said, I'm going to get in the business. He said, what business? I said, the family business.
A couple of things, right? So notice that he faced opposition. Now, as an entrepreneur, you probably hear it all the time. You're going to face opposition as an entrepreneur. That's just a fact, right? I faced it. He obviously faced it. His dad didn't want him to get into the family business. Now, his dad knew he had a little bit of education on the family business, which in this case, it was wrestling. But that doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to have the same result that his father had. His thought process was different, right? Obviously, his result was different than what his father was able to accomplish. So as an entrepreneur, just expect it. Your family loves you. They're not going to want you to hurt for anything if they truly do love you. And that was the case with The Rock's father, right? His father didn't want him to have the same result that he had as the dad.
It's a convergence of being grateful where I'm at and being aware of my position in this business. But also, as we talked about earlier, keeping all that stuff in the forefront of my mind.
That keeps you humble, right? So if you keep these little things that you go through, these little obstacles that you face, that help you build your character over the years as you become a successful entrepreneur, if you keep all these things in your mind, what it does is it helps you to stay focused on the end task. In his case, he's like, even, I don't know what he's worth today. Let's say he's going to be worth $1 billion in the next few years. But in his mind, he's always a couple of days away from being broke, from having $7, even though that's not the case. But it helps him to stay focused. For me, I always remember the hardships that I went through over the years. That's why I always say live below your means. I learned how to live below my means. I learned how to do what you say you're going to do all the time, even if it hurts. Keep your relationships strong, because you never know. If you go through a hardship, a relationship can help you out. of that particular situation. The hardships that I've gone through in my life, it helps me to stay grounded at the end of the day.
It's that
the drive.
It's that I've never arrived.
Yeah.
We've never arrived.
Isn't one of your motivational sayings though, like something like, "Hey, we're getting evicted around the corner," or something like that?
Eviction is around the corner.
Eviction is around the corner.
That's another thing, man. That is such an important point. You've never arrived. What does that mean? That means your goal is a moving target, right? Because once you feel like you get close to your goal, and I experienced this as well, once you feel like you're there, you set a new target, right? So, for example, my channel just recently hit 100,000 subscribers. That was a long time goal for me. Now that I've hit it, I set a new bar for myself. So you keep raising the bar as time goes on.
I think I'm pretty good at a lot of things. In terms of being the best at something, besides egotistically horizontal hula, I'm pretty good at what I love to do.
That's a super important point as an entrepreneur, right? So I can relate to this. I don't feel like I'm the best at anything. I feel like I'm really good at a lot of things. Now, sometimes you might hear the old adage that says, if you're good at everything, you can't be the best at the one thing, or something along those lines. Can't even remember how that old saying goes, but you understand exactly what I'm talking about. But I think being good at a lot of different things allows you the tools, the resources that you need to be the best among your peers.
When we saw Kevin, we was like, "Hey man, we're gonna talk to Dwayne. Like, we're gonna sit down with Dwayne." He's like, "Ask him this, but don't get him on this, because if you get him on that, then he's gonna go corporate on you, and you don't want him to go corporate." but it made me think though. Immediately when we said your name, you could see him open up. You could see him.
Yes.
You could see him have the type of feeling of like, "That's my dude."
You're on this entrepreneurial journey, and as you're looking to build your business, you're so focused on what that end goal is that you kind of forget about everything else. And I lived that. Anybody who knows me will tell you, for the first 10, maybe even 15, I've been in real estate over 20 years now. For the first 10, maybe even 15 years, I didn't communicate with a lot of people. And I think that kind of led into a little bit of the depression bout that I had. At the end of the day, for me, it's about having 3 levels of friendships, or 3 levels of association. You got friends that you can help up. So you always want to pull somebody up. Friends on your level, and friends that you feel are better than you. And if you walk into a room, especially on a business aspect, and you probably heard this before, but if you walk into a room and you're the smartest person in the room, or the most successful person in the room, you need to find another room to be in if you want to elevate yourself, right? And building friendships is super important in general, right? But it just depends on what you're going to use those friendships for as well.
In my teenage years, 20s, Miami, wrestling, Rocky Maivia, Nation of Domination, The Rock, I'm going to eat first. I think Kobe might have even said that, like, I eat first.
Notice he said, and Kobe said, I'm going to eat first. Nobody else is going to eat if you don't set yourself up for success. If you don't hit the certain level of success that you put yourself out to, and you don't put the weight of the world on your shoulders, again, making your goal about somebody else. If you don't put in that work, that time, that effort, and you don't get off that couch, and you don't change the way you do things in your life today, you're always going to hit the same exact goal. So I know you heard this before. If you want a different result, you got to do something different. If you want to have the same result, keep doing the same thing you continually do, right? If you truly want to change your circumstances, you have to change. And you have to make it so that you eat first. You put yourself in a position to bring other people up. But until you get to that position, you can't bring anybody else up. I hope you enjoyed this video. Be sure to like it, subscribe, click the notification bell. If you want more videos like this, where I kind of react to certain key things that I learned from and benefit from as an entrepreneur, be sure to leave a comment in the comment section expressing that. And I'll see you guys on the next one.